Hello guys, my name's Zoe and this is my story. I will be using fake names because my story is unique and I don't want to be recognized. I don't care if anyone recognizes my now ex-husband Shawn or his girlfriend Terry, but I have a son whose identity I would like to protect. I'll call him Keith here. My story is a little painful, so bear with me when I get carried away with emotions. I married my husband Shawn when I was 25. We had a fairly amazing relationship and a good marriage. Sure, there was his ex, Terry, who created some problems, but they never bothered me that much. Shawn had always assured me that he wasn't in love with Terry. I believed him. I also chalked up Terry to being jealous and salty because Shawn left him. Before our wedding, she said things like, "You and Shawn won't last long, Zoe. Mark my words. Shawn is still in love with me. I know that in my heart." "Don't be ridiculous, Terry. I know you wish he was with you, but there's no reason for you to wish our breakup. Besides, it won't happen anyway. Shawn is not in love with you." "You don't know anything, Zoe. Shawn and I are soulmates. We were always meant to be. You cannot come between us." "If you were meant to be, then why did you break up?" "You have to remember that you broke up for reasons, Terry." "We broke up because I am infertile and can't give him children. He's only marrying you so that he can have a child of his own. Mark my words, Zoe. One day after you give him a child, he will leave you." Terry's words really made me uncomfortable. I was already a little insecure about myself, and her words didn't make things any better. She had also constantly stomped our boundaries and did some outrageous things. This was the last straw that made me speak to my husband. Together we decided to cut Terry out of our lives. Shawn didn't seem that much affected by it, and he assured me that he was with me because he loved me. The trouble started back again when I found out that I was pregnant. It was almost 5 years into our marriage. Things were great between me and my husband. We had planned the baby, although it took me a while to get pregnant. When we found out that we were having a kid, we were over the moon. It was a boy, and we couldn't wait to have him in our arms. I was on bed rest because it was a high-risk pregnancy, but Shawn was extremely caring and cooperative. While we were happy, Terry appeared out of thin air to express her frustrations at me. She had called me to say, "You don't deserve this. You don't deserve to have Shawn's child. I love him more, and this child should have been mine." "Look, Terry, I understand that it is painful for you to not have kids, but this is not okay. You need to stop obsessing over us and get help." "Don't tell me what to do, Zoe. If I wasn't infertile, your son would have been mine. If you weren't in the picture, me and Shawn would have had a good life with our son. You spoiled everything." "You need to get help, Terry. I tried to be patient and understanding with you, but you have done nothing but harass me. This can't go on. I'm afraid we will have to take action if you continue to be so unhinged." "Do what you want, Zoe. At the end of the day, nothing will change the truth. This child should have been mine. Maybe one day he will be mine." Terry's unhinged behavior put me on edge. I talked to Shawn, who assured me that he didn't tell her about my pregnancy. He promised to handle the situation and didn't want me to stress out. He even arranged everything about getting a midwife and making the necessary arrangements for my delivery. We were having a home birth on Shawn's insistence. I tried telling him that I wanted to go to a hospital, but he told me that a home birth would be better. The midwife he chose was good, so I didn't question him as much. Besides, I trusted my husband to make the right call. I really shouldn't have done that. I still remember the night I gave birth. The birth was super painful, and I actually passed out from the pain. When I woke up, Shawn and the midwife looked extremely sad. Their faces said it all, but I couldn't believe it. I said, "Where is my son? Where is he? Bring him to me. I want to hold him." "I'm so sorry, Zoe. Our son didn't make it." "What are you talking about, Shawn? This can't be true. My son is fine. Just bring him to me." "Our son is gone, Zoe. There was nothing we could do to save him. I'm so sorry, Zoe." What happened next is still super hazy to me. I remember breaking down and crying, but there isn't much else I remember. My mental health was so bad that I was put on pills. My baby boy was cremated without my presence. At that time, I was sedated because my mental health got that bad. I couldn't even see my son even once. By the time I was back to a little normal, it was too late. I was only left with pain and regrets. It was a big challenge to come back to normal, and I had Shawn and his family for support. Years passed and I became too scared to have another child. Surprisingly, Shawn never pushed for another child either. I thought that maybe he didn't want to stress me out. But, slowly, his reluctance to have kids was starting to bug me. He was also acting a little too suspicious with his phone and had been distant for a while, and he was taking a little too many business trips in the last few years. One day, I found a plane ticket for him that I knew nothing about. I said, "Why did you book a plane ticket to this city, Shawn?" "Oh, it's for a business trip, Zoe. You don't have to be so concerned about it." "Why didn't you tell me about it sooner? You've been taking a lot of business trips recently." "Yes, I got a promotion. Management is now making me do all sorts of things. I was so busy at work that I forgot to tell you." Alarm bells rang in my head since Shawn was acting nervous. I had no idea what to think. When he was in the shower, I actually ended up taking matters into my own hands. In a split second, I decided to go through Shawn's phone. I wasn't hoping to find anything. Actually, I was desperately praying that I would find nothing. But fate had other plans. Not only did I find out that Shawn was having an affair, but also the name of the woman he was seeing. It was none other than Terry, his ex-girlfriend. The texts went back a year and detailed Shawn and Terry's meeting and escapades. It also mentioned someone named Keith, although I had no idea who he was. At that moment, my head was spinning with the fact that my husband was cheating on me. I barely held myself back to avoid making Shawn suspicious. I wanted to find out more and catch them red-handed, so I decided to stay quiet for some time and follow my husband. That night, Shawn was all set to meet up with Terry in another city. He had flown there telling me that it was a work trip. He took several work trips like these, which I now know were all fake. He was just flying there to see his freaking ex, who was actually his girlfriend, I guess. I had no pity for Terry because I was pretty sure she knew. I mean, they even discussed how they would keep this a secret from me. I was absolutely raging mad. The pain had subsided after Shawn left. My tears had died down and I was now desperate for a confrontation. The next day, I took a flight to that city and went to the cafe where they were supposed to go. I waited there for Shawn and Terry to show up. When Shawn and Terry finally arrived, I saw that they were accompanied by a small boy. It was like a punch to my gut. The moment Shawn and Terry spotted me, they looked panicked. It was all the more confirmation. Still, Shawn rushed to me and said, "This isn't what it looks like, Zoe. I can explain." "How do you plan to explain the fact that you have been cheating on me, Shawn?" "Tell me how you plan to explain that." "You have to listen to me, Zoe. Terry and I are just friends. We reconnected over Facebook a little while ago, and I just want to be friendly." "Is that why you're here, playing dad to her child, Shawn? Is he yours?" No, he's not my child, Zoe. I swear, I only reconnected with Terry a few months ago. Keith is only 5. There is no way he's mine. Terry, tell her." "Yes, Shawn is telling the truth, Zoe. My son is only 5. There is no way he is Shawn's child. We started talking again this March." My head was reeling with what I was witnessing. I already had tears in my eyes and was on the edge of pure panic. My husband was acting all dumb and innocent. Somehow his mistress was also playing along with what he was saying. I knew for a fact that they were both lying. I saw their texts, which went back a whole year. Shawn may have deleted the rest of the texts. I trusted my eyes more than I trusted those cheating idiots. But before I could tell that to their face, something shocking happened. The child, Keith, who had been silently watching us until now, looked confused and decided to say, "What are you guys saying? That's not true. You are my dad. And why do you keep telling her that I'm 5? I'm 6 years old." "What? You were 6 years old?" And Shawn is your father? Yes, I think my mom and dad have gotten confused about my birthday. I also know who my dad is. Terry and Shawn looked absolutely horrified while I stood there in shock. The kid was clearly calling my husband his father and saying that he was 6 years old. If I did the maths right, he was conceived around the time that I was pregnant. My husband was sleeping with his ex while I was in bed with a high-risk pregnancy. And he had gotten her pregnant as well. Who knows, he may have gotten her pregnant before me. All these new thoughts sent my brain into overdrive. But I remained calm because I needed to get to the bottom of this. Meanwhile, Terry and Shawn were in full panic mode trying to hush Keith into silence. They said, "You need to stay out of this, Keith. I'm so sorry, Zoe. He doesn't know what he's talking about." I would rather believe him over you lying idiots. Keith clearly says that he is your child, Shawn. How would you explain that? Come on, Zoe, he's just a kid. You can't possibly believe what he's saying. Why are you lying to this lady, Dad? You know I'm telling the truth. I am 6 and you are my dad. It's even on my ID card. Keith was starting to tear up. He was confused about why his father was straight up denying their relationship. Keith was so hurt that he actually pulled out his school ID, which clearly showed his birth date and name of his parents. He let me have the ID first before Terry or Shawn could snatch it out of his hand. Keith was already crying and those two idiots weren't doing a thing to comfort him. I was already feeling angry on Keith's behalf, but what I saw on his school ID absolutely blew my mind. Guys, Keith's school ID told me about the day and year when he was born, and it was the exact same day when I had lost my child. That information, along with the fact that Shawn's name was indeed on the school ID under my father's name, absolutely floored me. I was actually gasping for air when I looked back at Keith and saw his hazel eyes staring at me through tears. Shawn had grey eyes and Terry had blue eyes. There was no way he inherited that from them. I was shaking when I asked Shawn, "Why does Keith's ID say that he is your son? He was born on the day I lost my child. What is going on here?" I can explain, Zoe. You have to listen. It's all just a coincidence. Okay, I lied about some things, but Keith really isn't my child. I just put my name on his birth certificate because he didn't have a father. Yes, Shawn is telling the truth, Zoe. I don't know who Keith's father was, so I asked Shawn for help. Ever since then, he has been helping me. I swear there's nothing more to the story. So, you were trying to tell me that Keith was magically born on the day I lost my child, and he magically got my eyes instead of getting yours? It's just a coincidence, Zoe. There's nothing else going on. Let's talk about this privately, Zoe. I'm sure I can explain everything. Stop. Just stop, Shawn. I don't want any more explanations from you. I found your texts with Terry, which clearly show that you are cheating on me. As for Keith, I will find out everything soon enough, and when I do, you will both pay dearly. Those were some of the last words that I said to them before leaving to find the truth. I went everywhere I could. First, I started off with Shawn's mother, who was horrified to know everything I told her. Her expression of surprise and disgust made it clear that she didn't know a thing about what Shawn did. She was downright appalled and promised to find out what was going on. With the help of a few friends and their connections, I managed to find out the truth. First, I started with the midwife who was assigned to deliver my baby. I took my mother-in-law and my cop brother to see her. The midwife took one look at my brother in uniform and started to spill all the secrets. Apparently, Shawn had paid her to keep her mouth shut. She never told anyone about what she had done. Terry had come into the house after I gave birth to my son. Terry took my son away while I was crying over the lie that my son was dead. My son was never dead. He was simply kidnapped. It then hit me. What I have missed for the last 6 years. I couldn't raise my own kid because my husband gave away my child to his mistress. I was a crying mess, and my family had a hard time calming me down. I felt the loss all over again. I wasn't going to get back the 6 years of Keith's life that I had already lost, but I was going to make things right. I was going to teach Shawn and Terry a big lesson while making sure my son was back in my arms. So I went ahead and filed a police report against everyone involved in the case. After the report was filed, I flew to where Terry was living. It wasn't very hard to find her home from my husband's texts. Shawn hadn't come home since I told him not to come back. Besides, he might have been with his mistress planning their next steps. Instead of giving them or the cops time, I went to confront them. I angrily barged into Terry's house and said, "Did you two think that you would get away with what you did?" "What are you talking about, Zoe? You're being extremely unreasonable. You won't even hear what I have to say. This is ridiculous." "What will you say about kidnapping my child and telling me that he's dead? Did you think I would never find out? You think you can keep my child away from me?" Shawn and Terry started to look really sweaty and nervous. They were starting to realize that their evil plots were getting caught. I had discovered the truth despite their best efforts to conceal it. Still, in a ditch attempt, they tried to play innocent and said, "You were wrong, Zoe. Keith is my child. He simply shares the same birthday as your late child." "Is that so, Terry? Then tell me, how did you magically get pregnant when the doctors clearly said otherwise? Isn't that why you and Shawn broke up?" "Well, it was a miracle, Zoe. Keith is my miracle baby. I know the doctor said that I could never have kids, but I had Keith anyway." "Lies. They are all lies, Terry. There is no use lying anymore. Keith is not your miracle baby. He is my miracle baby, because I was told he was dead." "But I know that was a lie. My own husband had lied to me and given away my son to his mistress." "You don't know what you're saying, Zoe. You're being delusional. Keith is Terry's child and had nothing to do with you." "So, you will still act innocent? Well, what will your answer be when I tell you that the midwife confessed to everything? Do you want me to show you the proof?" Shawn and Terry went as white as a ghost when I mentioned the midwife. She was one of the very few people who knew about what was going on, and she had confessed to everything. Shawn and Terry had never expected her to talk or them to get caught, so they had this deer-in-headlights kind of look. They said, "What? The midwife told you everything?" "Of course she did, Shawn. She took one look at my cop brother and started to spill all your secrets." No, that's impossible. This can't happen." "If you are so much in denial, you can just ask the midwife. Too bad that she is in police custody now. Well, you can go talk to her when the cops come and drag you both away." "What? What do you mean, Zoe?" "It means that I have informed everything to the cops. They had started an investigation and found plenty of proof about what you did. They even found proof that you two faked Keith's birth certificate and kidnapped my child. They will be here for you soon." Shawn became even more panicked and Terry just started to cry. It was finally sinking in their heads that their nasty plan was finally about to blow up in their faces. I kind of had a feeling why they did what they did, but I really wanted to hear it from their faces. I wanted closure and revenge before I started my life afresh. Shawn and Terry, in their desperation, told me everything. I didn't even have to prompt them for anything. They thought that being the forgiving person I am, forgive them for whatever they did. They said, "Please don't do this, Zoe. We're begging you. We can talk about this. I know what we did was inexcusable for you, but we had our reasons." "I was desperate for a kid, Zoe. Shawn saw my pain. You have to understand that he loved me. I swear I loved Keith as my own son. He grew up with his dad in his life as well." "We can make amends with you, Zoe. There's no reason to get the cops involved. We will figure something out with Keith as well." "I'm sure we'll find a way to make things right, Zoe. Please don't call the cops. Don't take me away from my child's life." "Keith is not your child, Terry. The sooner you accept that, the better it will be for you. None of you deserve to walk away scot-free after what you did to me. I will never pull back the police report. You two will be going to jail while I take my son back. I will be filing for divorce, and I will make sure none of you ever get to come near my son again." Shawn and Terry were still trying to talk to me when I walked out of the house. I knew I would be back there, but not to face them. I would be back to get my child. I didn't want to upset him by taking him forcefully. He was just a 6-year-old whose world was turned upside down. Being his real mom, I didn't want to make things any more difficult for him. So I walked away knowing that soon I would have Keith in my arms. My husband and his mistress were arrested the very next day. The day I left, they flooded me with texts and calls begging me to spare them and take back the police case. They even tried to use my son as a bargaining chip, which made things worse. It made me angrier that they would drag an innocent child to save their skin. Sadly for them, none of their begging reached my ears. I was adamant that I would make them pay for the pain they put me through. I divorced Shawn and got full custody of my child after a long fight. Shawn and Terry played me dirty and tried everything to get away with what they did, but God was watching and gave them some severe consequences for their actions. For the nature of the kidnapping, Terry lost all rights to Keith, who actually no longer wanted to see her anymore. He was working with a therapist who made him realize, in child-friendly terms, what had happened. I didn't want to hide the truth from him. We did conduct a DNA test to make sure that he was my kid, and it was a match. So the court awarded me custody. As for Shawn and Terry, they are currently serving jail time for what they did. Keith is now living with me and adjusting well to his new life. He still goes to a therapist to cope with the big changes in his life. To make things easier for him, I moved to his city so that he wouldn't have to lose friends by changing schools. My mother-in-law, who disowned Shawn, was happy to be a grandma to Keith. Keith was equally thrilled to have an extended family who loved him. I will admit that things were tough in the beginning, but it is getting better. He has even started to call me Mom sometimes. It just brings tears to my eyes. So now I'm trying my best to give my son a good life, while Shawn and Terry are rotting in jail.